Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
What we are doing is working, but we cannot let up.
A double dose of good news, an optimistic COVID trajectory, and another vaccine bound for BC. Also,
it really isn't the kind of call that needs to tie up a 911 line.
Hundreds have taken it upon themselves to act as COVID police, inundating 911 operators to report violators. And
I just wanted to go get some yarn and a loom.
knitting therapy, the addiction treatment center hobby that's helping the homeless and women in recovery.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. BC's Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, says COVID-19 cases in the province are leveling off after peaking in mid-November.
She is, however, warning now is not the time to put your guard down. New modeling information is available, and our Tina Lovegreen joins us now live in studio to break it down. So, Tina, we've seen a slight bending of the curve in BC, but we're still, of course, not out of the woods.
We are definitely not, and the number of deaths is troubling. Look at this graph from today's modeling presentation. So if you look at the purple one, this is the number of cases, and you can see it's kind of leveled off as the new restrictions came in. But the orange line is number of hospitalizations that's gone up, and as for deaths, you can see that has gone up kind of after the middle of November, and it's been steady throughout the pandemic. And to see it kind of go up at the end is what is alarming. The week of December 15th to the 21st was one of the most challenging in BC. 109 people died, and today we learned of 19 more deaths, meaning we have now lost 796 people. So Dr. Bonnie Henry says it's a reminder of how quickly things can change.
We cannot let off. We've seen that happen before. If we look back into October, we were hovering along at 100 cases a day, and very quickly it spread rapidly. We're now leveling off in our hospitalizations, but they are at the highest level that we have seen this year.
And I want to show you how quickly those scenarios can change based on our interactions. This is, again, from the modeling presentation. So you can see, if we keep at 40% of normal, the curve will go down. But if we increase our interactions, it can go up quite sharply if we increase it up to, 70% of our normal interactions. So just gives you an idea of how quickly things can change and why Dr. Bonnie Henry is insisting that we keep our celebrations small this holiday season.
Mm-hmm. And Tina, what did we hear about schools? We've heard so much from many parents concerned about exposures. What does the latest modeling show there?
Well, the modeling shows us that the majority of cases are seen in people between the ages of 20 to 39. And while there have been a number of exposures in schools, transmission has been low.
Even though 1% of school-age children have been tested, fewer than 7 in 1,000, or less than 1%, actually test positive for COVID-19.
So, Tina, on vaccines, we know Health Canada approved Moderna's vaccine in our country today. So when can we start seeing those in arms here in BC?
Well, BC is expecting its first shipment of the Moderna vaccine next week, and the plan is to get it to priority groups like frontline healthcare workers, those living in long-term care. And because it is so much easier to store and transport, it will also go to remote communities to protect them as we move into the winter months. Now, the province has identified 10 remote First Nation communities that will be the first to get the vaccine as soon as it arrives. Tanya, Mike?
All right, thanks so much, Tina. That's our Tina Lovegreen reporting live tonight. So cases are now beginning to level off. That's the good news, but of concern still is the increasing death rate.
As Tina mentioned, 19 more people in BC have died from COVID-19, bringing the total death toll to 796. And 518 more people are confirmed to have the virus. BC's total caseload is now more than 48,000.
The number of people in hospitals is down to 348, and those in critical care or ICU is now at 80. Active cases took another dip and now sit just over 9,100, and more than 5,600 people have now received a COVID-19 immunization.
As mentioned, Health Canada today authorizing a COVID-19 vaccine produced by Moderna. Canada has a deal to get 40 million doses of the Moderna vaccine.
That's enough for 20 million people to be vaccinated. Olivia Stefanovich now with where it's being eagerly awaited in particular and where the roadblocks could be.
We know that this pandemic doesn't start to end until we have vaccination of millions and millions of people.
The approval of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine brings that goal one step closer.
This is excellent news. We were anticipating the approvals now for a couple of weeks, and it is going to be a key to COVID response in Inundated.
Northern and rural communities were left out when the first vaccine from Pfizer-BioNTech was approved, since they lack freezers needed to store the doses in extreme cold temperatures. Moderna, by contrast, can be transported more easily, making it a realistic option for remote areas.
The underlying risk that we have for respiratory illness is much greater because of the lack of infrastructure, whether it be healthcare infrastructure or housing.
But getting the vaccine into hard-to-reach places is one thing. Injecting it into arms, another. Many rural communities don't have permanent physicians, let alone hospitals. The Canadian Red Cross and the military may be called in to lend a hand, but there are concerns some Indigenous people may resist rolling up their sleeves.
Because we have been used in history for horrible tests. So there's also a population that believes they don't want to be used as guinea pigs. So we have our own work to do. A huge education component will be coming.
Within the next 48 hours, doses should be in Canada.
Moderna says 168,000 doses are expected to arrive by Christmas Day. The territories are expected to get their first shots by next Monday, with 40 million doses expected by the end of 2021. Even still, communities are being encouraged to stay vigilant.
It doesn't give us a green light to relax our measures that we've been having in our communities for some time now.
And that's Olivia Stefanovic reporting from Ottawa. Back here in BC, it's been more than a month since new restrictions were expanded province-wide.
But unlike earlier, these rules came with teeth.
And as Briar Stewart tells us now, they are being increasingly enforced.
This Christmas, it's about COVID crowd control. At the Gourmet Food Warehouse, the line stretches down the block. The store stepped up its precautions at the start of the holiday rush by adding arrows and extra plexiglass.
When everything kind of really tightened up and the restrictions were made more serious for everyone, we definitely took that to heart and we're trying our best to make everyone feel comfortable.
Health officials came by to approve the plan. Dr. Bonnie Henry's watchful eye is even down one of the aisles. Her image is on a best-selling bottle of barbecue sauce. Well, officials say most are following the rules, some aren't, including a couple of churches that are still running in-person services.
There is always, a few that try and skirt the rules, and as we've seen, there are fines that will be levied.
Around 400 fines have been issued since August. In BC, indoor and outdoor gatherings are banned. If someone wants to report a possible violation, officials are telling them to pick up the phone. Just don't call 911.
For the first 3 weeks of December, right up until December 21st, we've seen more than 500 calls come into our call center. People worried about people having house parties or not abiding by the restrictions.
Police departments say call them directly.
Hello, how are you today?
In Surrey, police are checking in on businesses and responding to reports about health order violations. Over the weekend, it had a dozen calls.
Our officers follow up on each and every one of those complaints, and wherever appropriate, they are issuing violation tickets.
On Sunday, they issued a $2,300 fine to someone who hosted a baby shower with multiple guests. Officials are hoping the public heeds the health orders over the holidays and say, don't think you won't get a fine just because it's Christmas. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
No lights, in the cold with no answers. Some residents at an RV park in Surrey say they were left to fend for themselves for several days when the power went out last weekend.
They insist it's the landlord's responsibility to fix it, but as our Andrea Ross reports, an advocate says they may have unknowingly signed away their rights.
And can do dishes. These are food from neighbors who have power, have cooked me food. Valerie Ball has had some long, dark nights lately, doing what she can to stay warm.
I had blinds and then I had to put up these, so they're just pinned up for the heat. And then I doubled up my curtains here.
The power went out at Hazelmere RV Park on December 19th. Ball says residents had no power for days as temperatures dipped below zero, and that the landlord gave tenants no indication of when it would be restored.
Without any power, we have no sewer and no running water. So we can't flush our toilets, we can't run any water.
She says aging infrastructure is to blame and her landlord needs to deal with it.
Because it's unacceptable to leave people without power in the middle of winter, in the middle of COVID.
Many who are seniors.
We've had cold weeks before, but nothing like this. This is crazy, I mean.
Soon after CBC News visited the park on Tuesday, the power was restored. The landlord wasn't around, but in an email to CBC News, he says the outage wasn't his fault. He said, quote, "We were at the mercy of BC Hydro. It's important to note that we have open lines of communication with all guests." But BC Hydro says it wasn't their issue. They said any power interruptions could be due to a problem with a private power line, which would be the landlord's responsibility. And that's where things get complicated.
Because we signed these papers, we basically, I guess, have given away our rights. I mean, we're fighting it.
Residents signed off on new park rules this summer. One advocate who looked over those documents said they essentially relinquished exclusive possession of their rental sites, a key part of having a tenancy agreement, leaving the landlord off the hook on a range of responsibilities.
If the tenant is not under the Manufactured Home Park Tenancy Act, and there's nothing to compel the landlord to deal with the issue.
Legay says RV park tenants need to be careful and understand what they're signing.
You're in a vulnerable situation as a permanent resident in an RV park unless you have tenancy, or it's clear.
The landlord says residents won't be charged for nights spent in the cold, but Ball wishes it didn't come to that in the first place.
Well, make sure you read everything. Do not sign it if you don't want to. Do not sign it.
A cold, hard lesson learned. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Surrey.
Travel on Vancouver Island has slowed to a crawl, not only at the airport, but also on the ferries. This is typically one of the busiest days of the year at Victoria International Airport, but it was much different seen there today. No long lines or crowds, just a few stray travelers. The airport says it averages 75,000 passengers over the 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, but this year it expects a fraction of that, only 10,000. BC Ferries is also seeing a significant drop-off.
Right now, we are seeing our vehicle traffic down about 50% and passenger traffic almost 70% on our major routes. And we do expect to have quite a slow Christmas. And that's a good thing because people are heeding Dr. Bonnie Henry's advice.
A large number of sailings are normally added during the holiday season, but this year the capacity is about 75% fewer. Staff say they aren't seeing the big crowds like they had over Thanksgiving before the advisory, recommending against non-essential travel took effect.
Well, to New Westminster now, where flames ripped through a house early this morning. The call came into fire crews shortly after 6 a.m. This was the scene at Caribou Street and 13th Street. When firefighters arrived, the inside of the home was already fully involved. Fortunately, the house was abandoned and already slated for demolition, and there was no damage to any other homes or properties.
It spread quickly because there's no fire separations in there. All the drywall's been taken out of the building and that, so it's pretty routine fire.
Fire investigators are still trying to figure out what caused this fire. Well, physical distancing rules and a recent dump of winter weather are pushing British Columbians into the great outdoors.
And local ski hills are now having to balance high demand with pandemic safety. Our Dan Bird is live here with more on that. So Dan, just how busy has it been?
Well, North Shore Mountains have been very popular destinations in recent days, with many hitting the slopes after we got that snow on Monday, as Tanya mentioned. How popular? Take a look. This was the road to Cypress yesterday. A marathon line of cars backed up down the mountain. The parking lot packed as well. Things weren't quite as busy today, but both Cypress and Seymour Mountains said they're online, that their parking There's more waiting to do once you reach the top. Cyprus says they're operating at about 80% normal capacity. Despite the pandemic, lift lines are about as busy as they are during normal seasons. The resort is taking precautions as well. When you get there, it says guests have to wear masks for virtually their entire visit, and they need to maintain physical distancing. Visitors are also encouraged to sanitize their hands regularly. The skiers and boarders we talked to certainly noticed the crowds and the precautions.
Were you expecting a big lineup?
I was actually. I wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to ski.
I came up yesterday and it took me 2.5 hours from Burnaby. Oh, it was unbelievable. I have never seen it like that in the 20 years I've been snowboarding.
Oh, there's lineups. It takes a bit longer because everybody is behaving in COVID fashion.
I think everybody's pretty much following the guidelines.
Over at Mount Seymour, they've gone even further. Along with the mask and the distancing rules, they're operating at 75% capacity and doling out time on the mountain through an online reservation system that caps your visits at 4 hours.
This year at Mount Seymour, we have had to do literally everything different, right from the very start of the customer experience. Everything has been brought down a notch just to allow people a bit more air to breathe around the mountain.
Like Seymour, Grouse Mountain is also requiring visitors to reserve a gondola ride to the top online, so expect waits at whatever of the 3 hills you decide to head to. Mike, Tanya.
All right, Dan, thanks very much. Dan Burrett with us live tonight. And Nick Czernkovich now joins us with the forecast, the snow, where I think it belongs, up on the mountains. Nick, and we had another nice day on the south coast.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, one of the things that Avalanche Canada is really warning people about is that all of that beautiful fresh snow that fell in the mountains, while great for resort skiing, not great for backcountry skiing. So we're going to start with that, actually. Avalanche Canada putting out a special public avalanche warning, if I can say that, for areas in red here for much of the mountains in BC and Alberta. And the reason for this is there was an existing snowpack that was already unstable, and then you add on the snow that we had on Monday and Tuesday, which totaled over 50 centimeters plus, and that's basically brought it to sort of a critical point where snowshoeing, skiing, sledding, you name it, can very easily trigger avalanches in these areas. So they're really warning people not to go out in the backcountry in these areas, or at least make sure you take the proper precautions. And that's the same story for other places as well, with levels at moderate to considerable. And again, all of this because of that fresh snowpack. It hasn't had time to stabilize. And before that, there is another system that's approaching, and this is going to be the weather maker that we're talking about as we head into Friday and Saturday, and that is going to bring some rain for Vancouver and surrounding areas, snow for higher elevations. There's a look at the next 24 hours. Watch for fog patches tonight, -3, wind chill down to about -10, 5 for tomorrow, and then the rain starts. We'll have your full forecast coming up in a bit.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thanks so much, Nick. It may seem like an unlikely combination. A group of men at a treatment facility for mental health and substance abuse issues in Surrey has taken up knitting.
Yes, knitting. As our Mira Baines is finding out, the therapeutic activity has actually turned into a mission to help those in need.
It's not the kind of hobby one might expect a person to pick up behind bars.
I was actually incarcerated, and it was part of like our art therapy where we one of the staff brought in some looms.
And when 41-year-old Nelson Mendonça started a 90-day treatment program at Phoenix Transitional Housing in Surrey, he didn't stop. Loom knitting became a way for him to deal with his anxiety and loneliness.
I had a lot of anxiety, and it's like the first thing that came to my head, and I just wanted to go get some yarn and a loom. I started making a toque, and everybody was wondering what I was doing because it kind of looks weird at first.
His hobby became an icebreaker. He got others involved, resulting in a men's knitting club. They use knitting looms to create colorful toques, and the designs are becoming more elaborate.
Everybody was doing it, so I had to pick it up and give it a try.
The men are incorporating pom-poms and even take special requests for basketball and football-themed hats.
You can see the joy in people's faces when they make them for somebody, as also when somebody receives them.
They've stitched hundreds of toques for people in need. Mendonça's addictions counselor says the unique hobby is proving to be another way to help the men at the facility in their journey to recovery.
So when someone finds their way, they kind of leave footprints for the next guy to follow. So the toquing is definitely original.
Sean Broussard is part of the knitting club and is a resident at the facility.
It's almost like meditation. It kind of takes you away from it. Definitely takes you away from worrying about a ton of stuff or thinking about negative things, especially when you're doing something as fun as this.
For Mendonça, his favorite part is giving away his creations to those who need them.
You know what? I haven't been the best person in the past of starting things and finishing things, and it's really nice to just start something and finish it.
The group of men at Phoenix have made more than 200 toques to donate to homeless people and a women's recovery house. And they've even knitted tiny ones to give to newborns in hospital. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Good on them. I do like the new verb they've created in toquing. But the basic color ones were spectacular enough, but it's pretty impressive that they're doing football and sports-themed ones, too.
Yeah, one of them was doing Seahawks colors.
Yeah, that's sophisticated stuff.
Knitting therapy at the Addiction Center.
Yeah.
Good on that for sure. Just a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
With the approval of a second COVID-19 vaccine, there are now 2. What the differences are between the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines next. (6:20). Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, throughout the week, we've been showing you some holiday light displays from across Canada. Tonight, there's more to share.
Our CBC cameras have been very busy capturing some of the best displays right across the country. Take a look and we'll begin in our nation's capital.
Am I seeing more inflatable Santas and
I think so.
reindeer out there?
Yeah, there's one on my block where they have about 3 on just one balcony, so you get a big punch.
Yes, always a big moment when they finally come to life.
Yes.
Okay, back in just a couple of seconds. Lots of COVID-19 news from across the country and around the world. Stay right here. Health Canada has now approved 2 COVID-19 vaccines, and the Moderna vaccine is expected to be easier to transport than its Pfizer counterpart. But there are other distinctions, like who the treatment was tested on. Vicadopia shows us what's different and what they have in common.
Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech are part of a new generation of vaccines. Both use messenger RNA technology to trick the immune system by creating copies of the coronavirus spikes, triggering antibodies that protect against the real virus. But there are differences. Moderna requires 2 shots 4 weeks apart, while Pfizer's second shot is sooner. Pfizer is harder to transport. It needs ultra-cold storage. Moderna needs less extreme cold. There are also differences in who the vaccine was tested on. Moderna used Americans with a small number of volunteers of different ethnicities, while Pfizer's trial was in a diverse range of countries, which could be important.
Some of the key molecules in our immune system, especially the ones that sort of teach T cells to recognize pathogens, differ between different ethnic groups.
Then there's the question of who can get vaccinated. Moderna used healthy adults for its trial, 18 and up, while Pfizer also included 16 and 17-year-olds.
So to see more data in pediatrics, in pregnancy, in immunocompromised population, we do need to have data in the pediatric age group, and I suspect that at some point we will need to vaccinate the children. Otherwise, we have this gap in our immunity.
Researchers can't say if vaccinated people can still spread the virus, though there is some early evidence Moderna's might prevent that. It's also not clear how long either vaccine protects people.
We don't have enough data to know what protection will look like in a year's time from now. As that data comes in, that's one of the things that we'll be keeping a close eye on, because otherwise we'll be in continuous cycles of vaccinations.
There is optimism both vaccines will be effective against the emerging UK variant of the virus, but as with so much of this pandemic, that answer will come in time. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Moderna says Health Canada provided the company with guidance throughout the review process. And the general manager of Moderna's Canadian office says the company is excited about playing a role in this country's vaccination launch.
The great news here is that 66% of the adult population will be vaccinated with a Moderna vaccine next year. The Prime Minister has said that he wanted the majority of Canadians to be vaccinated by the end of Q3, and I can assure you that Moderna will be playing a significant role in making this happen.
With Health Canada's approval of Moderna's vaccine, the number of Canadians with immunity will soon begin to increase. Up to 168,000 doses of the drug are expected to be available by the end of the year. According to one expert, getting Canadians to take vaccines is crucial.
The reality is that only if all Canadians step up and get themselves vaccinated are we going to end this pandemic. The faster we can do that, the better. I'm desperate to have my parents be able to hug my kids again. And the only way we do that is to get to herd immunity through vaccination.
Health Canada says the Moderna vaccine was found to be more than 94% effective in people with no prior COVID-19 infection. It was slightly less effective in people under the age of 65. Overall, the vaccine's effectiveness and safety was found to be consistent across age, sex, and ethnicity.
Canada is prolonging its ban on flights from the UK in response to a new strain of coronavirus that's spreading in southeast England.
Our government temporarily suspended all commercial and private passenger flights from the UK to Canada. Today, I can announce that we will extend this temporary suspension of passenger flights from the UK to Canada for another 2 weeks until January 6th.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government wants to prevent the new coronavirus variant from coming into and spreading within Canada. He also says officials are working with the UK to learn more about this mutation.
There has been an unprecedented demand for home deliveries this holiday season, and not every parcel delivery service was prepared to handle the huge surge, including Canada Post. But as Ashley Burke explains, COVID-19 may have undercut its original business model, but it also showed it a new one.
It's the busiest time of the year for Canada Post. And because of the pandemic, the Crown Corporation says the number of parcels is staggering.
As we've moved into peak season, it started earlier and it has continued, it has not relented, and will be going gangbusters right until Christmas.
But still, Canada Post is losing money due to high costs for personal protective equipment and the huge drop in the amount of traditional letter mail. But there is a silver lining.
Parcels is and delivering things to home has been just a huge North Star, because that's where we need to be.
Canada Post says COVID-19 has acted like a time machine. Its parcel projections leapfrog 3 years into the future, with a 35% jump in revenue in the second quarter alone. But it wasn't ready for it.
We need to have the capacity to deliver all of that, to process everything, because we've been up, scratching our head on the ceiling in terms of the amount of capacity, just because things have grown so rapidly.
It just won't be that easy for Canada Post to pivot.
This business professor says when Canada Post does adapt, it doesn't mean it will be profitable.
Canada Post does have a high cost structure vis-a-vis its competitors. So in addition to its labor costs, there is quite a lot of investment that has made in the past few years related to technology, being able to manage parcels, customer service, as well as the time necessary in order to then deliver these parcels.
And it's up against growing competition from giants like Amazon to smaller delivery services, even bike couriers with much thinner margins. Canada Post says it will deliver soon on its plan to shift focus. It will be investing in more parcel storage and processing capacity in the new year. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, he got his majority, but he insists he's still the same premier. CBC sits down with John Horgan for a one-on-one. That's coming up next, and we'll ask him about BC's biggest challenges on the horizon for 2021.
But on the West Coast, Christmas doesn't necessarily mean snow. For instead, the mild sea air often brings soft mist to Salt Spring Island on the Gulf of Georgia. In tiny coastal towns where all supplies are brought by water, the supply boats in frequent visits are always welcome. But today it's awaited more anxiously than ever, because it's the Christmas boat with decorations and candy and the presents that were ordered by mail a month ago. Yes, the mail is in, and eager hands take over from the postman, wondering what's inside each brown paper parcel. What's Christmas without a Christmas tree? But it's time for Mom and Dad Ackerman to get down to the serious business of wrapping presents. And it's a big job with 10 children, especially hiding them. There, they're safe until Santa comes. Or are they?
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
What we are doing is working, but we cannot let up.
Our provincial health officer is expressing cautious optimism about BC's efforts to flatten the curve once again. Dr. Bonnie Henry presented new modeling that shows the second wave of our pandemic has begun to slow in response to the restrictive measures limiting social gatherings and events. And she delivered a 1-2 punch of good news, also announcing the Moderna vaccine is set to arrive in BC next week.
And Dr. Henry is also reporting 518 new cases of COVID-19 in BC and 19 more deaths. There are now more than 9,100 people with active cases across our province. 348 are in hospital, including 80 in critical care. Dr. Henry is again asking people to stick to their households and not travel over the holidays.
We noticed an increase between Friday and Saturday nights, so people could be gathering, house parties, that kind of thing, or maybe reporting a business that might be crowded.
Emergency operators are being inundated with reports of COVID rule breakers. More than 500 911 calls have come in the first 3 weeks of December alone. But police are urging people to call local detachments directly instead. It comes alongside ramped up enforcement and a warning, though it's Christmas, officers won't hesitate to hand out tickets.
The Premier is armed with a majority government heading into 2021, but he'll be facing an uphill year trying to steer the province out of the pandemic, and he insists his style of governing won't change. Tanya sat down with John Horgan, and here's part of their year-end interview.
COVID cases started to double every 3 weeks in August, then sped up during the election, and by the time your government took back the wheel, it was really too late to stop the trajectory of the second wave. So in hindsight, should the province have brought in restrictions sooner, say even during the campaign, or even immediately after? Because you waited 2 weeks until after the election to put those restrictions on the Lower Mainland.
Well, I just disagree with that premise. Dr. Henry has full autonomy, as she did before the election, during the election, and today, to make public health orders in the interest of British Columbians. There's no politics involved in these issues. I've gone out of my way, in fact, to leave these decisions, the advice to the public, to come from health officials so that the people of BC can have every confidence that these issues are coming forward, not for political expediency, but for public interest.
Post-election, most of the biggest portfolios in your cabinet went to men. Your Attorney General, the government House Leader, your Health Minister, your now Transportation Minister. Are you doing enough to promote women in the highest levels of government?
Well, I believe so. My Deputy Minister is a woman, Lori Wanamaker, a 35-year professional public servant. She's joined in her office by 2 other women, long-time professional public servants. The Minister of Finance is a woman. The Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture is a woman. The Minister of Agriculture is a woman. The Minister of Forestry, the first ever woman to hold that portfolio, Katrina Conroy. So I am absolutely convinced that we're on the right track when it comes to gender balance. The first caucus in Canadian history that is a majority women, 29 women and 28 men in the current government. The positions that you articulated, the Minister of Health is Adrian Dix, and I don't think there's a person in the universe that would change that. David Eby has been outstanding as Attorney General, and Mike Farnworth is the most experienced person in the House. Why wouldn't he be the House Leader? I think that those particular men are capable and doing a great job, and the women that I've just mentioned are also capable and will do a great job as well.
Talking about one of the biggest issues on the horizon, when it comes to the price tag on the Site C dam, what is your walkaway number? How expensive does it have to get before your government decides it's simply too costly for taxpayers to proceed?
That's a very good question. We're still awaiting the final report of Peter Milburn, engineer and former Deputy Finance Minister here in British Columbia. He's been reviewing the situation at Site C. We expect his report any day. That'll be reviewed by officials in government. It'll come to Cabinet, to the Treasury Board, and we'll take a look at what the consequences of the geological challenges that have been discovered, as well as delays because of COVID-19. So we have some challenges on that front. We haven't got all the details in yet. I certainly will not give a number that's a drop-dead number. I think we need to look at the whole project and what the consequences would be to either stopping or proceeding. And when we get that information, I'll certainly share it with the public, and we'll go from there.
A criticism that has been leveled at you since you formed a majority government and you're back in the legislature now is that you've become somewhat arrogant in the House because you no longer have to appease any other party. So how do you respond to that, and how do you reconcile your messages of cooperation if those are the optics?
Well, the optics, that's the first time that's been leveled at me, Tanya, quite frankly. I'm the same person I was before the election. I'll be the same person after I leave this place. I get up every day trying to do my best to make BC a better place. I don't do it with arrogance. I certainly am absolutely prepared to engage in the debate and the cut and thrust of the legislature, but my style is to reach out to people, and I've been doing that since the day I was sworn in as Premier, and I'll continue to do that until the day I walk out of the office. If my opponents in the legislature are unhappy about their lot in life, I suggest they take that up with a councillor. I'm here to focus on people. That's my job, and that's what I'll keep doing.
And finally, I just want to ask about the recovery benefit. Will there be any consideration or adjustment to perhaps allow people who did lose a job to somehow access that as well if needed?
Absolutely. We have to have criteria. The criteria that we have available to us is the 2019 tax year. I would suggest that those in the higher end of the incomes field would probably have been in a position to continue their employment. If not, certainly government stands ready to provide programs and services to them, including the COVID benefit. But we had to have a starting point. The 2019 tax year is the most recent information that we have. Were we to wait for newer information, that would take us well into the summer of 2021. I don't think anybody wants that. For those that do fall between the cracks, government is ready and able. We have 87 members of the legislature across British Columbia that can hear from those citizens, bring those ideas to government, and will act upon them.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Premier, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to your viewers.
In the ever-pressing need to keep up with technology, our landfills are filling up with e-waste. How some innovators are inventing new solutions for the problem, next.
And at 19 minutes to 7 o'clock, a live look at City Hall in Canby Street. Well, we're just 2 sleeps away from Christmas, so what's in store for the big day and beyond weather-wise? Nick has your full forecast. That's coming up.
Here we go.
Being thrown out of the routine was really tough, and that's being away from our students was really tough because we love being around our students. So when we came back in September, we were nervous, and they ended up totally surprising us. They're so resilient, they're so patient.
It's been going okay. It's different with the masks and everything.
It has been going well, but at the same time, lots of people don't get to see their families. I don't get to see my grandparents, which is heartbreaking, but I have to be safe than sorry.
Our school is kind of special in the sense that, first of all, our kids come from all over the city, so they're not in their neighborhood. They come from all over to join us. Many of them, they have challenges in school. They also have challenges outside. I mean, food security can sometimes be a problem. And just the lack of sort of a network that regular teenagers might have. Some of them have less.
Some students have problems of learning, and the work that they need to learn, it's not easy for them. So the fact that we at least get a chance to go back in and have the teacher show us exactly what we need to learn is just good. It's amazing.
To come back and see all my friends, teachers, childcare worker, all this kind of stuff, I happy to see them. We make a card for our friends that we cannot see them because of COVID-19 and we cannot mix up the classes.
At least you get to socialize a little bit more like we used to. I mean, it's been really good.
The seniors, we're doing we're just writing to say happy, like I say, wish you happy holiday. I wish you like say happy new year.
Kids are still going on their work stashes. We've figured out how to do that so they can actually get work experience, because that's another thing. We're teaching life skills and living skills so that they can get out there when they leave school with a job.
It's a really nice company. We work for spices and we prep for spices and we deliver it, and it's just amazing, the experience.
I think our kids have always had challenges. Like wherever they are, they've always been challenged in fitting in following the norms, and this is just like one more. So these guys are actually like super troopers. They've already had to overcome all kinds of obstacles. So like a mask and washing your hands is just like one more thing, and they do it. That's what they do.
It's been gone pretty good. I mean, at the school year, I was really nervous, but now I'm not. Everything is going to be okay.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Let's bring back meteorologist Nick Czernkovich. And Nick, looking at Christmas week, we kind of started with a wet Christmas, then we had a white Christmas, and now it sounds like we'll just have a clear Christmas.
Christmas Eve. I don't know about Christmas Day. It looks like Christmas Day is going to usher in a new weather pattern for us once again with rainfall. But at least there's been like 3 days of good sunny weather, or for the most part anyway. And temperatures haven't been too bad either. We're sitting at 2 degrees right now in Vancouver. Earlier today peaking at 6, but it's really dependent, of course, on the winds. As the wind shifted out of the northwest, the temperatures dropped by a few degrees there just as it comes off of the water. So really wind dependent, but especially when you get along coastal sections. But in any case, temperatures at or above the seasonal mark in some locations. There's a look at other temperatures across the region. So pretty much where we should be for this time of year. Now, we are tracking another weather system that's making its way into the region. It's bringing with it warnings, especially to the north there. Now, there are storm warnings in effect, winter storm warnings around terrace and snowfall warnings. And this as another system pushes moisture onshore. As the high pressure that we're under starts to break down, it's going to slide southward. So that's what we're expecting to see coming up over the next couple of days or so. So put this into motion. Clear skies tonight. That'll likely lead to some fog patches again, and temperatures dropping below the 0 mark, at least in Vancouver, down to about -2, -3. Wind chills closer to about -10 or so. Otherwise, that should burn off pretty quickly as we head through tomorrow. Things clear out quite nicely, actually. And then as we move through Thursday night, so Christmas Eve night, into Friday morning, Christmas Day, we're watching this. The weather pattern pushes rainfall into the region there. We're looking at rain across all of the coastal sections. And then once you get into the higher elevations, we're expecting to see some snowfall. So that's Friday morning, and continued rain as we move through Friday there and into Saturday as well, and snowfall through parts of the BC interior. Total rainfall amounts with this likely to be on Friday 15 to 20 millimeters, an additional 20 to 30 millimeters as we head through the weekend. Winds are also going to pick up a little bit out of the south as well, and that just as this system approaches. So in terms of our long-range forecast, that's how it looks. Thursday, really the best of the days there. Rain showers, unfortunately, making their way in for Friday and Saturday. 7s through the weekend. Bit of a break on Sunday there, and then seasonal as we head into next week. Mike and Tanya.
All right, Nick, thanks very much. Well, from smartphones to tablets, the demand for electronics continues to soar, and electronic waste, it's piling up.
Tashana Reed introduces us now to some innovators finding creative ways to keep these products out of the landfills.
I'm always walking to the same old place, just in case.
New screens, better cameras, faster operating systems. Each year, tech companies entice consumers to upgrade their devices. But it comes at a cost, and not just financially.
We have an industry that hasn't really come together to think about how we can prolong the life of these devices, and also that they have a big impact in their production on the environment.
From the mining of precious metals and minerals needed to create batteries, screens, and cases, to the e-waste left behind. The toll is immense. In 2019 alone, more than 11 million tons of personal electronics ended up in landfills.
E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream.
Dutch company Fairphone is trying to change that by building phones to last longer.
We want to develop products that people can enjoy for as long as possible so that we can lower those CO2 emissions per user and per year.
It's created a modular smartphone that comes with a screwdriver. Hardware changes or camera upgrades can be done by the customer.
They can send us back the old camera as well, so we make sure that we are able to reuse it if possible and otherwise recycle it.
This is my new screen, and I could replace it within minutes all by myself.
They're only sold in Europe, but Canadian Carolyn Aubry bought one 5 years ago.
They just don't build it to have to throw it out. So I don't know. I'm willing to take the challenge and just own it for as long as I possibly can.
At the University of Toronto, researchers are busy developing green technology to recycle precious metals from discarded e-waste.
Resources are depleting as we consume more and more. Therefore, it's highly desirable nowadays to find secondary resources for these elements.
Still, it's years away from industrial use. For now, experts say one thing consumers can do is think twice about that upgrade. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, grab a pen or a pencil. We've got a holiday quiz for you coming up, brought to you by the CBC's nature columnist, Frank Ritzie. The world is not back to normal. Life has not fully resumed. We are not at the finish line yet.
We know we can do it.
As phase 3 of the economic
New
restart
COVID
plan.
restrictions will mean that elementary.
In times like these, get trusted news from a trusted source, your public broadcaster. Anytime, anywhere, anyway. CBC Vancouver.
So the reason you called us originally was about this painting right here.
Northern Dancer. The racehorses are wonderful. They're so dignified and intelligent. They asked me if I would paint a picture of Northern Dancer. Can you read that, Paul? See right below.
Oh, why staring at art is the best therapy of all.
There you go. Now with this virus that we have, we're all learning that living within 4 walls is not always the neatest. I never feel in here that I'm lonely. I do little wallet-sized pictures of my paintings and put them on easels. Many times they'll say that they open up their drawer in the morning and there's your picture, or they are feeling like kicking the cat and they look at the picture and it makes them feel. And art does that to you. It's a moment where something comes alive and then it goes, but you can always return to it. When I go to do a commission, I usually could take my camera out and it'll take about 30 pictures of the subject matter. If you see anything you like in a picture, like the background or the horse's ears or, you know, the way he's standing, and in the end, when they pick out 1 or 2 pictures that they really love, you've got an amazing amount of information. And I think that's probably why people recognize when they see the painting, they love it, because basically they've told me what to do. He loved this one because he used to sit in that chair there.
When we talked on the phone, you told me that your husband said the apartment would be boring if it wasn't for the art.
He passed away this time last year, so he loved sitting in his chair and looking at the art around the room. And he wasn't very polite about it. He just said, you know, this place would be a dump without all your art. And I always remembered that because it was sort of, dump wasn't the word I was looking for. But he just felt that the energy that the art gave off was something that he loved. I really don't feel old, although I am, because of the fact that there's all this creativity around me. There's always something fun to do. I'll be 90 this time next year. You have to keep busy so you don't think about being old. And you have to keep doing things that you enjoy.
When we talked on the phone last, you told me that you were downsizing your prints and paintings.
That's correct.
How's that going?
It's funny, you get to a certain age and you realize your days are numbered, and the sooner you get your paintings out to places who really enjoy them, the better. I sometimes think, okay, fine, you want to sell everything, what are you going to do? And the one thing that I've always wanted to do is to paint things that I want to paint. Do big pictures, big landscapes, there's so many beautiful things to paint. If these walls get bare, I'm going to have to do some big paintings to cover them.
Well, the holidays are certainly going to be quieter this year, and maybe that's not a bad thing.
There'll be a lot more time for reflection.
And even if we can't be with all of the people that we love, it's finding ways to show them and tell them that we love them and care about them now more than ever.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon.
Happy holidays from everyone at CBC Vancouver. Okay, CBC Radio's nature columnist, Frank Ritzie, has come up with a super fun video that also doubles as a quiz.
Oh, good. Pull out a pen or a pencil to discover a hidden message contained within.
And we should let you know, it starts off relatively simple, but it gets trickier as it gets going.
All right, so Mike got this right off the top. He knew it was Merry Christmas.
Oh, well, you know.
Yeah, but he just called it right away. I actually did the quiz. I don't know if you can
did the
see.
quiz too.
I missed 2 of them, but I think we had some help from our director, Mark, in our ears. Was very good at this one.
It did get harder at the end. See,
it
I
did.
couldn't figure out what the T was.
Yeah,
or
between the
S,
H,
but
the A, and the S. Anyway, we'll have to rewind.
with
and
Mary
get
and
those.
yeah, we got all that. That was
All right. Well, that was fun. Yes, you'll have to rewind the PVR if you want to watch it all again and try it. You can always watch our newscasts online as well at cbc.ca/BC.
Another place to find the quiz, their next local newscast right here at 11 o'clock with Mr. Dan Burrett after the National. Have a great evening.
Good night.